Steven Grace, we have quite the game to talk about today, so I'm not going to bury the lead. The Bears improved to 2-0 in Class 1A District 5 and 4-1 overall with an incredible 24-21 victory over Mediapolis. And to set the scene, I think we should just jump straight into the scoring recap and talk about things from there. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect to me.
All right, but before we do that, you're listening to the Talking Bear Football Podcast right here on westbranch.football.
And it's presented by the Browns West Branch family of dealerships.
No Jason Miller this episode, as he had a scheduling conflict, so it's just me, your host, Matt Chinander, and then voice of the Bears, Steven Grace. We're just going at it alone, Steven. I hope this works.
We'll see if we can survive.
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think we should just start right into the scoring recap just to kind of set the scene for everything that we're going to talk about here to recap the Bears' victory over Mediapolis. So we're going to start here in the first quarter. After the Bears forced a Meepo punt on their opening drive, the Bears fumbled the ball near midfield to give it right back. But 3 plays later, Meepo fumbles it and gives it right back to the Bears. So kind of like nothing happened there. But the Bears take advantage of that with a 12-play, 49-yard drive that ended with an Andy Henson 16-yard touchdown run. And just some, I don't know if you've watched back the film. I know you couldn't really see it in the moment with the situation of the windows there in Mediapolis, but I don't know if you watched it back on film, but just some really good edge blocking by Kennick Belk and Aiden Dingbaum to free Andy on that run around the end.
I started looking at a little bit. I haven't got that far yet, so that'll be something that I want to circle, though, and watch, because there was several good things that I could kind of decipher through the dirt-streaked, rainy, wet windows.
Yeah. Federland's PAT was good, so 7-0 Bears late first quarter. On the ensuing Mediapolis drive, Bears force a punt and take the ball right back down the field for another long scoring drive. This one an 11-play drive that resulted in a 36-yard Wyatt Federland field goal to extend the Bears' lead to 10-0. He had kicked one before that, a 31-0, but there was a delay of game penalty, so pushed it back 5 yards. And I think he was still into the wind and still had plenty of leg on that 36-yarder too. So really good kick there by Wyatt. Mediapolis responds on their next drive by getting into the end zone on a beautiful 23-yard passing catch for a touchdown from Ben Egan to Aiden Nelson. PAT was good, so 10-7 Bears late second quarter. Really busy second quarter here, but on the Bears' possession after the Meepo touchdown, they marched down the field with a 9-play drive that was capped off by an Andy Henson 2-yard touchdown run. And that run, Steven, I know you and I were talking about it I think it was at halftime we were talking about it. That run, just fantastic game. Tell us about it. Or fantastic run. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, just watching it on the replay, and it was a toss sweep, and he had a fullback and a tackle that was pulling out in front of him. And Andy was just really patient. I mean, he was almost basically jogging, letting those blockers get out there and set things up, had his hand on one of the guys' backs, waited for them to find their right guys and start to open the hole. But then as soon as he saw that opening, Andy turned it on, and he met contact right at the goal line and ran over the defender. And, I mean, that was pretty much like in a yard and a half or 2 yards. So for him to kind of be trotting, and then he made the decision, hey, there's my hole, I'm going to hit it. And he hit it so hard that he ran the guy over and got into the end zone for the touchdown. I mean, that was a beautiful play. Great job by those guys getting out, leading the way, but even better job of Andy showing that patience, but then showing that quick burst and that power to be able to get into the end zone.
Yeah, that patience plus the agility to just go whenever you need to is so dangerous. And we're Andy, like, I don't know, it's strange because he's such a big kid, a strong, powerful kid. Plus, he's got the speed and the smarts too. He's just we're really glad to have him on our team. We'll say that. Again, Federland's PAT was good, so Bears lead 17-7 with 4 seconds remaining in the first half. Let's jump to the third quarter. On Meepo's first possession of the half, the Bears got the ball to start the half. Meepo forced the Bears to punt, and then they get into Bears territory. in the red zone, but penalties kept pushing them back and back, and they had to settle for a field goal attempt. And I'm sure you were too, Steven, but with how good Miller's leg is, you'd think that he'd have no problem with this one. And technically he didn't, but the attempt was called no good.
Yeah.
Bears catch a huge break. Looking back at the film, I think that was the first thing that I looked at when I got a chance on Friday night. The kick was good. There's no and ifs or buts about it. You go frame by frame, you see the ball go inside the upright. So, unfortunate that it ended that way, but a huge break for the Bears.
It was weird because they'd only put one official back. Normally you have one underneath each upright. And then the one official that was there, normally if you've just got one, you would line up kind of in the middle of the goalpost. But he was on the one side, the same side where the ball was being kicked from. And the ball carried, and he had to kind of run and looked. And, I mean, it's weird when you watch the replay of it, and you see him kind of running and looking, and he's like, nope, it was no good. But unless there's something else that we completely missed, it seemed like it was good. We'll take it. I mean, it helped us out, but
Yeah. Well, anyway.
I have thoughts on that I'll share in a little bit. So
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, as I said, Bears catch a break. And then, so they get the ball back, but are forced to punt. And then Meepo takes it right down the field to pull within 3 on a 5-yard touchdown run from their running back, Anthony Isley. So, I mean, Meepo did exactly what they needed to do in that case. And they stopped after that, quote unquote missed field goal. They stopped the Bears, take it right back down and punch it in the end zone. So they did everything they could to rectify that situation there. So 17-14 Bears in the third. Jumping to the fourth quarter, the Bears' possession, after that Isley touchdown, they're forced to punt again. And again, Meepo drives right down the field and gets into the end zone with another Isley touchdown run, this time from 4 yards out. Miller's PAT was good, and that gave the Bulldogs the lead down 21-17 with 9 minutes remaining. The Bears, who kind of struggled mightily, I'll say, in the third quarter to get anything going offensively. The defense allowed 14 unanswered. They really need to put together a good drive to swing momentum back their way, and that's what they did. The Bears marched right down the field with another long drive, this time on an 11-play drive that chewed up just over 5 minutes of clock. Carver Belk finds his brother Kinnick on a really nice out route in the end zone. Carver just kind of rolled out to his left, did that tough throw where you kind of turn your body, for a righty at least, kind of turn your body and throw it. Not exactly the best footing that you want, but he threw it on the mark. Kinnick made a good catch, and it was 6 points for West Branch. Betterland's PAT was good to reclaim the lead for the Bears, 24-21, with 3 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. On Mediapolis' following drive, things started really well for the Bears as the Bulldogs start with a false start, and then the Bears sack Egan to set up second and long. But Anthony Isley, he had other plans, and he just does what he does. He breaks loose for what looked like would be a 77-yard touchdown run, Steven Grace. Yeah. But Kinnick Belk had other ideas.
I'll admit, I got to work Saturday morning, and the Belk family was having breakfast at the serving cafe next door, but Kinnick wasn't there. And so I said, tell him I'm sorry. I wrote him off. So, Kinnick, this is my public apology for the 17 millionth time. I did not think you were going to catch him. Way to catch him. Good job, young man.
Yeah. Isley, I mean, he was all alone starting at the 50-yard line or so and was caught up to by Kinnick and tackled at the 9-yard line. I mean, no and ifs or buts about it. Just a huge touchdown-saving tackle from Kinnick in an incredible effort. Looking back at the film, Kinnick, I was kind of just staring at Kinnick for that whole play, and he turned on the jets at about the Meepo 45 and just dead leg sprint all the way down the field to catch Isley, which is not an easy thing to do. So I did not know Kinnick could run that fast, so good for him. But yeah, still, I mean, things still aren't looking good at this point. I'm thinking at minimum we're going to go to overtime. Just, you assume Miller, at that point, they're well within Miller's range, obviously. And with how good of a kicker he is, they're at minimum going to get a field goal out of this. But the Bears defense comes through. once again, I mean, as they have at multiple critical points throughout the game, on that first and goal, they forced a no gain, a second goal, a loss, and then second down, a loss, and on third down, another loss, to set up a fourth down field goal attempt for Meepo at the 9, but with I guess what would that be, a 26-yard attempt?
27, I think, officially is what it was listed, at least what I wrote down. So that's unofficially official, or officially unofficial.
Right. The kick came out very low and to the left and did not make it through the uprights. I double-checked this one on video. Yeah. It did not go through.
It wouldn't have cleared the crossbar either.
And the Bears survive, 24-21. What a game, Steven Grace.
Yes, it was. And, I mean, as you're running through that, I just, 10 different things keep popping into my head. So one thing that jumped out, and we talked about it, at halftime, the Bears had run 38 plays to 14 for Mediapolis. Wow. And we're ahead 17-7. So, I mean, ball control, we had those 3 long drives. We scored on 3 of our 4 possessions. The first one we didn't score because we fumbled on a wet night. Then you flip that around in the third quarter. We had 3 straight 3-and-outs. We ran the ball. We had 9 plays in that third quarter, and we didn't gain a first down on any of them. So, obviously, Meepo made some adjustments. But then for us to respond in that fourth quarter with that long drive was huge. So, one of the other things that jumped out, I mean, tip of the cap to the coach on the sideline, JT, Jared Tiley. He had mentioned that the way that Mediapolis was playing their coverage, it looked like there was an opening for that out route against that coverage, and that's exactly what Coach Hirschman called and got Kinnick into the flat there on that little out route for the touchdown to go ahead. So that was very key as well. But I think one of the other things that, just after looking at some of the highlights especially, credit Kinnick Belk for the touchdown-saving tackle at the very end there on Isley. But he had, I think, 3 others that Mediapolis had some long gainers, and Kinnick was the one that was back there and made a play. That young man played a heck of a game from that safety spot, being the safety to make sure that the Bears didn't give up some of those scores.
Yeah, his name is on my list here, too, of people to talk about. Just a fantastic game from Kinnick. 6 tackles on defense. I mentioned earlier that really good blocking on the edge of the Bears' first score of the game. He and Dingbaum, just incredible, just kind of motioning in from his wide receiver spot, crackback block, just to basically make a wall, as you called it on the broadcast, which was accurate for Andy to run around. Catching that go-ahead touchdown. Of course, the touchdown-saving and game-saving, ultimately game-saving tackle on Isley. Kinnick is just another one of those guys that he isn't flashy, but he gets the job done, puts in a lot of work, and makes the offense and the defense just, click every week. But we can't go without mentioning Andy Henson in this game. Our Bearcast player of the game, quietly, just as he usually does, phenomenal game. 31 carries, every one of them just absolutely bruising. 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.5 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss on defense. Oh, and he completed a pass too, by the way. We'll get to that in a bit. Yeah, no big deal. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, he dominated. I'll say the second half because I think that's where I really noticed it the most. But that entire game, I mean, bruising run after bruising run. But, I mean, I give a lot of credit to the Mediapolis defensive front. They made it difficult for the Bears front to even get snaps off. I was talking to Dano a little bit there because the coaches were next to us. And, there were a couple snaps there in the third quarter where Drake had some low snaps. And that's not his fault. I mean, he had to, as soon as he let go of that ball, as you would know, Steven, as soon as he let go of that ball, he had to start blocking because Mediapolis front, they were just in his face the entire night and creating pressure.
Well, and that was kind of what I had alluded to last week when we were previewing Mediapolis. I mean, I said, you look at it and, on paper, okay, they're 5'9", 185 pounds, 6 foot, 205 pounds. Like, it's not that typical, hey, we've got a big, beefy offensive and defensive line. They are quick. And that was the thing. And I think, our first series of the game, we saw some of that where they were just knifing. I mean, they were picking a gap and just going, and we were having a hard time responding to that. We were able to find some ways to adjust to that. They adjusted again in the third quarter, which in turn forced us to respond in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, tip of a cap to them. That was a good challenge for our offensive line of what types of things do we need to be working on and in trying to get better at in terms of communication and in terms of just making sure that you're doing the right technique and getting those right reads in some of those situations. I mean, it's one thing to have a 300-pound guy that's not very mobile. You can figure out how to wall him off and run away from him. But when you have 200-pound guys that are shooting gaps and then they're not just diving in those, I mean, they're hitting those gaps and then they're ready to make plays. You got to figure out how to read that and take advantage of it for your side. So one other thing, I mean, obviously, it looked like it was a good field goal. The referee called it no good. And you're sitting at a spot where, okay, if that's good, it's 17-10. The Bears had gone 3 and out. We proceeded to go 3 and out on 2 more possessions. And everybody will look and say, oh, well, there was 3 points and, Mediapolis lost by 3, so that was the difference in the game, and maybe they would have made that last-second field goal and would have won it. But at the same time, I mean, how does the game completely change from that point? I mean, say they make that, and then we have a long kickoff return and have good field position, and we drive down and we kick a field goal ourselves, or we get a touchdown, or our offense, finds some footing because we're not pinned back, inside the 20-yard line again. So
right.
It's one of those that, yes, it's bad. You feel terrible for the young man that it happened, but at the same time, you can't just say, well, if that would have been right, then that 3 points would have been the difference in the game. Well, it could have completely changed that game. We could have had a 35-32 final score after that. I mean, who knows? So, it's easy to sit there and point and say, well, that one play was the difference. But, it's a 48-minute game, and every single play adds up at some point. And the way games flow together, one thing changes. I mean, it's the butterfly effect, and you never know how that's going to be. So just kind of, I had several people ask me about that, and that was my 2 cents on, yeah, it seemed like it was good, but in the grand scheme of things, who knows how the game would have been different if that would have been called good. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of a domino effect, and I think you could say the same thing too if Kinnick had not caught up to Isley on that touchdown run late in the game. I can't remember how many timeouts did the Bears have at that point.
I think we still had 2 or 3, and there would have been a minute and a half. I mean, they ran 3 plays and only took 1 timeout, and we got the ball with 50 seconds left. So, yeah.
Yeah, so who's not to say that, Isley gets into the end zone there, and the Bears don't march right down the field, and what they would have had to have gotten a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because they would have been down by 4. Yeah, so they would have had to have gotten a touchdown. Who's to say that the Bears wouldn't have gone down and done that?
Yeah.
So yeah, just a lot of what ifs and domino effects here that potentially could have taken this game in an entirely different direction. So yeah, kind of a interesting lens to look at those types of things through. And so yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. One final thing I wanted to say was just Carver Belk. I mean, we've talked about kind of his maturation and progression throughout the season at that quarterback spot. And I think especially in that last drive that gave us the final go-ahead touchdown, I mean, he had some nice reads on the zone read where he would keep it himself and got some really nice runs. He showed his athletic ability, and he had a couple of nice pass completions. I mean, it wasn't, hey, we're asking you to throw a 45-yard post route, but he put the ball in a spot where the receivers could catch. I mean, I'm thinking Peyton. They just ran a quick little hitch route out to him. But he put it in a spot where Peyton was catching it, moving forward, allowed his momentum to go with him so he could make a play. And it's some of those little things that maybe don't look as sexy on the highlights, and it's not like, ooh, wow, look at that bomb that he threw. But he's doing the right things. He's making the right reads. He's putting the ball in the right spot, giving his team a chance to succeed. And that's what a successful quarterback does. He doesn't have to have a cannon that can throw the ball the length of the football field. You're making the right throws, you're making the right reads, and you get yourself a victory as a team.
Well, yeah, and he's just being smart, too, is the thing. He's not letting his inexperience cause him to just throw the ball up. He's being mature out there, despite having maybe the not a lot of time playing quarterback. He looks mature on the field. He doesn't overanalyze. He doesn't get scared. Doesn't freak out, so to speak, and just throw the ball up because he doesn't know what to do with it. He just playing really smart football and improving every single week.
Well, I think to that point, I mean, just looking at my stat sheet, I think he had 4 straight incomplete passes, and I think all 4 of those were situations where there was some pressure coming, and everybody was covered, and he just made the decision to throw it over the receiver's head out of bounds. Or I think one time we were setting up the screen pass, and I mean, he kept backpedaling with 2 defenders in his face, and then was still able to throw it, I think, kind of at Andy's feet, so it would be incomplete. But, he found a way to have a successful incomplete pass. I mean, you think, oh man, it was a bad completion percentage. But that was a good incomplete pass because you didn't take the sack, you didn't lose 5, 10, 15 yards, whatever it was. You kept it at 3rd and 5 instead of making it 3rd and 13. And so, again, that's part of that maturity and making good decisions.
Yeah, so 24-21, the final, we'll say it again. Just a really exciting game. Had everything in it. It had weather, drama, excitement, highs, lows, momentum changes, lead changes, you name it. Just a fantastic Iowa high school football game Friday night there in Mediapolis. Get in the game with the mobile app from Fidelity Bank and Trust. Do your banking during the game without missing a play. Learn more at bankfidelity.bank. Fidelity Bank and Trust, your hometown bank and proud supporter of the West Branch Bears. Member FDIC. All right, so let's check out other District 5 action around the state here this was the second week of district play. Of course, we just talked about West Branch defeated Mediapolis 24-21. Regina took on Wilton, battle of some undefeated teams. Regina was victorious in that one 35-7. So again, probably another statement game from the Regals there to show that they are, at this point, the front runners in the district. And then Durant traveled to L&M to take on them. Hey, we had just driven right by there earlier in the day on Friday. Durant gets their first win of the season, surprisingly there, or surprising that they hadn't gotten a win, I'll say, at this point, 43-6. So, how we're looking in Class 1A District 5 at this point. Regina and West Branch sit at the top at 2-0. Durant and Wilton, they're tied for third at 1-1. And then Louisa and Mediapolis at 0-2 in the district. So, Mediapolis has some catching up to do and some praying to do if they want to stay in contention here, at least for the district title. Yeah. And then, hopefully get into the playoffs because they're a good team.
They are.
Very good team, and I'd hate to see them, potentially not make the playoffs or whatever that case is. But, what they've got to do these last 3 games, it went out.
Just win, baby.
They've taken on Regina and West Branch so far, so 2 tough games to start the district slate. So hopefully they can finish strong, and who knows? Maybe we'll see them again in the playoffs. They're a fun team to watch.
Yeah. So
best of luck to them. All right, Steven. So we're a little over halfway through the season, and we had kind of both thought we should let's check in on those fun over/under season predictions that we did with Jason at the beginning of the season, first episode of the regular season when we previewed the Lisbon game. So our first category is over/under 223.5 points scored by the Bears for the entire regular season. We're currently sitting at 145, and if I do some quick math,
29 per game.
29 per game, and our average, let's see, we had based our over/under on 28 per game. So we're right there. Jason and Steven had the overs. I had the under there. So we're right on pace for that one to be pretty close. Over/under 127.5 points allowed by the Bears defense. Took a little bit of a spike this week as far as the average goes, up to 50 for the season, but that's 10 per game, which is just phenomenal. Our 127.5 was based on a 16 point per game average last season. So Steven, you and Jason had the over, and I had the under, so I'm still looking pretty good on that one.
Yeah.
Andy Henson, 935.5 rushing yards. He's at 614 so far through 5 games, which is 122, about 123 per game, which is just a great average. And he's outpacing last season at 117 per game in the regular season. We all had the overs, so we're looking good there. Over under 1.5 non-quarterback pass attempts. We got one on the board this last week. We did. Andy Henson threw that. Well, it was funny. I was texting you and Jason earlier today, and I was looking at the stats, doing some prep, and I saw that Andy Henson had a pass. I'm like, I don't recall Andy Henson having a pass. And then you reminded me of that that play that
the shift formation that we do.
Yeah, the shift formation. Yeah, and we threw out of it.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 that results in an offsides penalty.
I kind of remember sitting there. I'm like, okay, they didn't fall for it. What do we do? but they had Bears had a contingency plan, and yeah, Andy threw a good ball to Carver, who just made a really good effort to get just down the field and get yardage.
Yeah,
that's all you're looking to do. Nothing fancy. Just get that first down.
Got 5 yards.
That's what they did. Yep. So we're at 1 there. So we just need one more to hit the over, and we all had the over on that. So come on, Coach Hirschman, we got it. Over under 10.5 interceptions. We were at a good pace through the first few games of the season, so we're at 4 so far for the season. So the Bears defense, come on, got to get those interceptions so far. Steven, you and I, we had the under. Jason had the over on that one, and then over under 1.5 special teams touchdowns. We're still sitting at 1. Was it the second game?
Maquoketa Valley, opening kickoff of McVac Valley.
Yep, that's right. So we're sitting at 1 there, so we just need one more to come through there before the end of the season. So yeah, interesting to watch those play out for the rest of the season. But yeah, I figured we'd give a little update on those.
Touched by Power Massage Therapy is your pathway to healing. Located on Main Street in downtown West Branch, licensed massage therapist Tracy Hartz offers Swedish massage and a variety of spa services. Touched by Power is the only therapist around providing a complimentary foot bath, paraffin treatment on your hands, hot towels throughout the massage, and a complimentary pedicure. Learn more or book your appointment at touchedbypower.com or call 631-1214.
Week number 6, the Bears welcome to town the Durant Wildcats. It's homecoming game for West Branch, and we'll just get it over right at the top. Many fun activities throughout the week. Parade on Wednesday, dance on Saturday. It's cliche and we talk about it every year, but I think it rings true. This is the week where the Bears really need to try and stay focused, despite all of the festivities going on. And, like I said, that dance coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, the cliche is the dance is so much more fun with a win on Friday night. And yeah, it's easy to get caught up. You've got different themes every day, so you're dressing up differently and you're just doing all these other fun things, and it's easy to let the game slip your mind. And just looking at it, I mean, on paper, again, this is one of those, oh, look, Durant beat Louisa Muscatine. That was their first win on the year. Okay, we can just show up and win. Well, I've just kind of looked at some of the things from Durant throughout this season, and they were 0-4 going into last week's game. They're 1-4 now, but look at their games that they had. They lost 23-20 to Sigourney Keota. Sigourney Keota, who's a top 5 team in the state, had to score a touchdown with a minute left to win that game. They lost 32-16 to Cascade, which I think Durant had several turnovers in that one.
And Cascade's a ranked Class 1A team.
Yeah. Northeast Goose Lake, Durant led 28-21 going into the fourth quarter, and then I think they had 2 turnovers late in that game, and that allowed Northeast to pull away. Wilton, Durant led 22-8 with about 5 minutes to go, and then Durant fumbled, set Wilton up, real nice field position. They got a quick touchdown, and then Durant had to punt. Wilton drives down and scores with about a minute to go to win by 2 points. So it's a situation where you look at that what if game, Durant could easily be a 5-0 team right now.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, and we keep talking about it. I mean, we've said last week, or probably since after week 3, and definitely after last week, they're probably one of the best 1-4 teams in the state. You'd like to think, and just with what they've got going on their team. With, I mean, obviously DeLong. We'll talk about him here in a bit, but yeah, just 1-4 is so many close games so far against some really good opponents. Yeah, the 1-4 is not an indication of their play and their ability. And the nice thing is they're sitting 1-1 in the district. They're right there, nipping on the heels of us and Regina. So they're not out of things.
Yeah.
And this is a game that they, pretty much have to win to keep up there in the district. And they'll have Regina at some point too that they're gonna have to win that. And I think they're very capable of doing that. But yeah, Steven, give us a little bit on what you've learned about Durant so far in your research and film watching, but yeah, I think it's just one of those teams that, like you said, we throw the records out the window. Who cares? They're a good football team.
It all starts, and this is kind of a theme for our district this year, stud running backs that are juniors. Nolan DeLong, and Durant doesn't have their stats posted from Friday night's game yet. He had 751 yards through 4 games. We talked about Isley with 707 through 4 games. DeLong had 751 through 4 games. And it's interesting because you watch those two, and they are both phenomenal athletes, but they're just a little different. Isley is kind of more of that shifty, agile, he's going to make you miss. And DeLong is more in the vein of Andy Henson, of he's going to flow a little bit, he's going to find a hole, and he's going to go north and south, and he's going to punish you. He is not afraid to put a shoulder pad into you. He is going to run you over. He is a strong dude. He's fast. He's all over the place. And so a lot of we talked a little bit last week about, the revenge factor, and, Mediapolis knocked us out of the playoffs last year. Well, we went down and we won a close game against Durant. We held DeLong in check last year. So, he's chomping at the bit saying, hey, I want another shot at this West Branch defense. And, he is a special young man. He's also their leading tackler. He's a phenomenal linebacker. He's getting recruited at, I think, the Division I level. Jason's closer on that than I am, but I think he's had some visits and, no official offers yet, but he's getting some looks because he's a good-looking football player. One of the other things that jumps out, I talk about how they've been snake-bitten by the turnover, but they have also got 9 interceptions on the season through 4 games. I don't know what they had Friday night, but they're averaging 2 interceptions per game through the first 4 games. So, it's a situation that Bears are going to have to take care of the football because they're ball hawks. They're looking for it. They're trying to make plays. And so it's a physical team. They've got good size on that offensive line. They're 200 at center. They're 260, 240 at the tackles. So, they've got some big guys. So it's going to be a different, again, it's similar to what we saw with Mediapolis, but different in terms of they're going to be a ground and pound. They like to grind it out and rely on DeLong, but this is going to be more of the physical punishing. We're just going to pound on you, whereas Mediapolis was more of the, we're going to find some gaps, we're finding some shiftiness, and you just know that they're going to find a way in these last 3 games to make some noise because they've been so close in those first 4. And it's just, I don't know. It's hard to fathom that they are just 1-4, and I could easily see them trying to get back to 500. And so the Bears are going to have to be ready to go.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kind of the ball hockey nature that they have on defense, and as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, and I think one thing that I'm looking for in this game is the continuation of Carver Belk to, I think I pretty much said the same thing last week just because of what Regina was able to do against Mediapolis with their quarterback's legs. I'm interested to see that process continuing with Carver Belk. I like what he did Friday against Meepo with his legs, getting him a little bit more mobile. And I'd like to see that increase in frequency, as I think he's a really good weapon on the ground. But we also saw some strong, well-thrown balls that, hopefully that the Bears passing attack can continue to ramp up. But I think we're well suited to do that despite that ball hawking nature of the Wildcats. Because I think Carver when he does throw it, he puts the ball in good places that it's either safely incomplete or right where the receiver needs to catch it.
Right.
And so I think the safety that he plays with, I think is really going to be a benefit to the Bears Friday if they want to have a passing attack. Is there anything that you're specifically looking for from the Bears this Friday to help eke out a win?
Well, obviously, I mean,
other than stopping DeLong.
Yeah, what can we do to stop DeLong? And then at the same time, Mediapolis, some of their success was some of those longer passes that they had or some of those counters. And so, just making sure that while we are keying on DeLong, make sure that we still play that team defense, that assignment football, so that if it is a play action pass, we don't let a tight end, leak onto the weak side and get wide open, or we don't let that, fake it and everybody's flowing with DeLong and they counter it back the other way with a different receiver or a different running back. And, and then I think the other key is just, get that pressure going. I mean, they've got a sophomore quarterback and, just kind of get him on his heels a little bit. Don't let him get comfortable out there. And, see if we can try to force some turnovers and take advantage of it. Because, I think that's going to be another big key is, can we force them into some situations and make sure that, we're getting that offense out there and getting the offense in some good field position too.
Yeah, it all kicks off this Friday, 7 p.m. at the Little Rose Bowl in West Branch. Homecoming game. So I think, what is it during? Oh, so
Wednesdays,
the homecoming
they do
parade
that.
on Wednesday. Yeah. And they'll do the coronation there, too, after
Yep.
the parade at the field. So if you're in town for that, be sure to go to that and figure that out. And we'll have Jerry Flagel on the sideline Jerry back on the Bearcast. So if you're not able to make it, listen into that. And, we were talking about this Friday, but I'm pretty sure Jerry bribed Jared Tiley to go to the Iowa game Friday just so he could talk to the homecoming queen.
Oh, definitely. For sure. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, this isn't a what if. I would all but guarantee it. We love you, Jerry.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. But yeah, if you can't make it, Bearcast 7 p.m. with the kickoff, 6:30 for the pregame, and hoping the Bears can prove to 5-1 in the season and 3-0 in the district. But it's gonna be tough. Picks to click time. Last week, Jason had Carver Belk. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, decent game.
I, of course, had Wyatt Federline
Well,
because that worked out.
I mean, his streak of 7 for 7 games came to an end.
Yeah, it ended. But was he 3 for
3 for 3 and 1 for 1
and a
field goals? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take that. Steven, you had Peyton Miller. He had some really good. You talked about one of those out routes, just a quick, or not an out route, but just kind of a wide receiver quick throw type of thing, and just letting Peyton use his athletic ability to create yards. And I think he's really good at that, and that's a good play for this offense.
Yeah.
So this week I'm first, and I mean, why not?
Why mess with a good thing?
Yeah, exactly. Steven Grace.
I'm going to go one-timer. I'm going to take our Main Street Suites polar bear of the game from last week and put Andy Henson in there. I think it's going to be a night that we're going to need him to do some big things both sides of the ball, matching up with DeLong, and I think that's going to be key too, is kind of like we saw in that first half, just make sure that we keep controlling that football, grind it out, pound it out, and don't give DeLong opportunities to make plays, because, he's busted through for some big runs, and so I think Andy's going to be key to that for both sides of the ball.
Yep, and Jason wrote in his pick, he had Aiden Shields. He's been doing some really good things, helping with this team the last few weeks, so hoping that continues there for Aiden, of course, Jason's chances, and of course the Bears on Friday. So that's all for our show today. Steven, tell us how folks can keep up with the team.
Well, there are multiple ways. Of course, you can listen to us blabber on each and every week. We record these on Sunday. Matt normally has them out, whether it's Sunday night, Monday sometime. It's weird because sometimes my Apple podcasts, like I think I got a note on Thursday last week that the previous week's was available.
Yeah, Apple's got some troubles right now with their podcast stuff. So,
Okay.
Not that that's a really good podcast app to begin with. I highly recommend other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, got some problems.
I normally listen through Spotify myself, but
Okay. Yeah. So typically, if you do subscribe to the show in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Overcast or Google Podcasts, whatever it is, that's usually up late Sunday night, immediately before we even publish it out on social media and on westbranch.football. So little pro tip there: if you subscribe to the show, which is totally free, in your podcast player, you'll get it immediately as soon as it's released.
so just go search Talkin' Bear Football so you can find that one. Of course, go to our YouTube channel and search for West Branch Football. We have highlights, we have our weekly interviews, and we're starting to put games up there. So the full game being uploaded, and you can actually rewatch the game in its entirety with the huddles clipped out. So it's, how long is it? About 45 minutes or so, 45 or an hour?
Yeah, typically 40 to 50 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, you'd call it what's a condensed game.
Yeah, so it's like watching the Iowa game without having to sit through 4.5 minute commercial breaks and just fall asleep because they serve turkey in the press box. I digress. Of course,
Better than beer in the other,
yeah, no
part of the
kidding.
press box. That also puts you to sleep.
Of course, go to any other social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. Just search at WB Bears Football. Of course, follow it. You'll get any updates. Matt posts all kinds of great things out there. And, of course, westbranch.football, because, that's where you can find everything, and it's all linked from there. So that's it. It's simple. It's just as easy as that.
And a huge thank you to our sponsors, obviously this season, but every season, many of our sponsors, multi-year sponsors that we've had for quite a while, they allow us to do everything that we do on the website, the Bearcast, the podcast here, all that. So yeah, huge thank you to Browns West Branch, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, plus also Browns West Branch Ford, Cornerstone Real Estate Consultants, EMS Detergent Services, Fidelity Bank and Trust, the Full Water Insurance Agency, Hodge Construction, the Hoover Presidential Foundation, Main Street Suites. I don't know what they are, but it sounds fun.
So is that a hotel?
Also, Marcy Willier with Urban Acres Real Estate in the Bales team, Touched by Power Massage Therapy, and the West Branch Times. Yeah, as we said, kickoff Friday at 7 p.m. at the Little Rose Bowl against Durant. Another big district game. Bears got to win to stay right there at the top of the district. Pregame starts at 6:30 with the Bearcast. And with that, Steven Grace, any final thoughts?
I got nothing. Let's get a big homecoming win. We need it.
Well, you've been listening to the Talking Bear Football Podcast right here on westbranch.football.
Presented by the Browns West Branch family of dealerships.
Take care, everyone.